if we could start with Ukraine, President Trump has said overnight that President Zelenskyy can end the war immediately if he wants to. The Americans also seem to be talking about a territory swap. How concerned are you about the direction that America seems to be taking vis-à-vis Russia?
I think it's important that we put all of this into context. So we, as the UN Human Rights Office, have been monitoring this conflict from the very beginning. In fact, from 2014, not just 2022. And we have documented more than 13,800 people killed, civilians killed. Any peace needs to be a sustainable one. What we are insisting on is that it's not so-called peace at all costs, that there are certain conditions that are non-negotiable. The protection of civilians has to be paramount. Prisoner swaps, all for all, prisoners of war exchange is essential. The return of civilian detainees is also essential, including forcibly transferred or deported children. There is a need for the establishment of humanitarian corridors across the line of control, and the rights of people in occupied territory need to be protected. Each of these conditions is essential for any peace to be sustainable, and this needs to be taken into account in any political dialogue that is taking place.
So given all of that, what should the European leaders who are in Washington also talking to President Trump be doing to shore up Ukraine's position?
Again, it's important to emphasize the human rights obligations of each state and the human rights of each of the people in Ukraine, in occupied territories, as well as the people of Russia. This conflict has led to, as I said, more than 13,000, nearly 14,000 civilians being killed. But also, if you think about the cost to Russia and to Ukraine of this conflict in terms of the number of military people lost as well. I mean, these are also people with lives, people with dreams that have been forced into this conflict. For what? It's important to bear in mind, first and foremost, the human rights of each of these individuals, and to ensure that, again, it's not so-called peace at all costs, that the conditions are there to ensure that this is a sustainable peace.
Mm-hmm. And from a human rights perspective, do you have concerns about territory being given up or swapped, as the Americans say?
I mean, I'm not going to comment on the kind of political and diplomatic negotiations. For us, really, the focus is on human rights. Now, what we have documented in occupied territory is huge violations of the rights of people. We're talking about killings, we're talking about arbitrary detentions, we're talking about cultural and religious rights also being stripped away from people, educational institutions where the curriculum has to change. This is not acceptable, and this is what we are seeing happen in occupied territories.
Mm-hmm. If we can talk about Gaza now, the ongoing humanitarian situation there is extremely dire. How worried are you about the Israeli government plans now to occupy Gaza City?
It's unacceptable that it could get any worse than this. What we have been seeing in the past few days is increasing and intensifying attacks around Gaza City, where we're seeing that people are being forced to flee south, for example, to Al-Mazawi, where IDP tents have been set up. However, even just in the past 2 days, I'm looking at the update that I've just received from colleagues. In the past 2 days, we've recorded 5 attacks on IDP tents in the Al-Mawazi area, killing at least 9 Palestinians. Nowhere is safe in Gaza, and we've been saying this for a while now. We cannot afford a further intensification of military operations. People are being forcibly displaced to areas which are also not safe and which are also being bombarded.
Mm-hmm. The UK government is due to receive the first seriously injured children from Gaza. How important a step is that?
This is an important step. I mean, we've been calling on all states to take whatever measures they can to alleviate the suffering of the people of Gaza, but also to bring this conflict to an end. Just in the past days, we've seen a huge number of cases of malnutrition and starvation. Again, I'm looking at our latest figures, and we have recorded 258 deaths from malnutrition, including 110 children up until the 17th of August, up until yesterday.
And do you think governments around the world are doing enough to put pressure on the Israeli government about what is going on?
In recent weeks, we have seen an increase in the pressure that is being put on the Israeli government to bring this conflict to an end, to agree to a ceasefire. Has enough been done? No, enough has not been done. This is an almost unprecedented situation. It's a man-made famine almost that's been created in certain parts of Gaza, and we've seen the killings of more than 50,000, 60,000 people. Not enough has been done to try to bring this conflict to an end. So we are again calling for a ceasefire for all the hostages, all the remaining hostages who themselves are in a terrible situation, to be immediately released, all those arbitrarily detained to be immediately released, and steps to be taken to secure a two-state solution, which is still the only hope for a sustainable peace for all Israelis and all Palestinians.
And finally, to Sudan, how worried is the UN Human Rights Office about the situation there?
It just keeps going from bad to worse. So the latest updates we have are in relation to El Fasher, which is in Darfur, of course, where the RSF has been carrying out heavy artillery shelling. Lots of people have been killed. I mean, it's a catastrophic situation, both in terms of humanitarian situation, but also in terms of active conflict and killings. And meanwhile, in Khartoum, we are seeing the Sudanese armed forces as well continue to carry out violations, including the arbitrary arrest and detention of individuals who are suspected to be collaborating with the other side. So from all sides, civilians are suffering. On the situation in Sudan, we have called for an extension. Well, first of all, respect for an arms embargo that has been in place on Darfur, but also an extension of this arms embargo to cover all of Sudan.
And there are also fears of famine in that area too.
Exactly. The humanitarian situation is extremely dire, especially in Darfur, but across Sudan. And steps need to be taken to address that as well. But again, this arms embargo is crucial because arms are continuing to flow into Sudan.
Ravina, thank you very much for your time. Very interesting to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for covering all these very important stories.